Kentucky basketball is on fire right now, and they've had a pretty solid season overall. And it's largely due in part to guard play that has far
on the
exceeded
Kentucky
our
Wildcats,
expectations.
part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You are Locked On Kentucky, your daily podcast on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team on the Kentucky Wildcats, part of...
All right, what's going on, Big Blue Nation? Welcome on into Locked On Kentucky, your daily Kentucky Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Lance Dawe, writer for various SEC-related things, but on this podcast, we take a dive into all things Kentucky athletics. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, and new customers, if you join today, you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. You can visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. On today's episode of Locked On Kentucky, we are going to be talking about the Wildcats' hot end to the regular season. Going to talk about the guard play, the improvements that we've seen from a couple of different players, the new players, the young bloods, how they have progressed and developed far past our expectations. Also on today's episode, going to dive into some college basketball, national landscape discussions, talk a little bit about the best teams in college basketball, some teams to watch out for in the NCAA Tournament as we get closer and closer to it. And then finally, we're going to wrap things up with a bracketology and a net update. Thank you so much for making Locked On Kentucky your first listen every single day. I want to remind everyone out there that we are free and available on all platforms. If you are watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the show. And if you are listening on podcast, I would greatly appreciate it if you subscribed there as well. All right, let's go ahead and get into it. Kentucky basketball is on fire to end the regular season, and a lot of it has to do with their guard play. Obviously, this team completely different from last year's in the way that they like to match up with teams from a personnel standpoint. Last season, Kentucky had a pretty solid front court, obviously, with Jacob Toppin and the GOAT Oscar Tshiebwe. And now this season, it's the complete opposite. While Kentucky's got some interesting front court pieces, the money has been made in the backcourt. 4 different guys that can light it up any given night, especially 2 that we'll start here at the top with. Antonio Reeves, somebody that I have praised all season long. And it was the question coming into this year about Antonio Reeves, about whether or not he would be able to take that next step, whether or not he would be able to show more consistency, develop more as an offensive threat instead of just a 3-point shooter. And now we've gotten to see it. We've gotten to see Reeves take that next step, and he has blossomed into not just one of the best scorers on this team, but one of the best scorers in the country. 20 points per game, 4.2 rebounds, 1.7 assists, shooting over 50% from the floor and 43.5% from 3 in 31 minutes a game. Reeves has really taken his entire game to the next level. And I said this on a recent episode, and I'll say it again here. This is an NBA player. This is a possibly a first-round draft pick, should be a first-round draft pick in my mind, and a draft pick, period. A season ago, I was unsure as to whether or not that would be the case with Antonio, and now after seeing him really round things out, and not just hey, he can kind of do a bit of everything way, but he can do everything excellently on offense. I really, really, really like having Antonio Reeves for these final few games of his career. Hate the fact that we're never going to see him again in Rupp Arena. It's a shame, but he played excellently this season. And he is one of the main reasons why Kentucky basketball has been on fire, not just recently, but this entire season. You can look to the most recent games here for the Wildcats: Alabama, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt. 4 games that the Wildcats have really done an excellent job just lighting opponents up offensively. 24 points against Bama for Reeves. You look here against Mississippi State. He had 21 points, 6 of 8 from inside the arc, 2 of 7 from beyond the arc. 22 points against Arkansas, and then 20 points here against Vanderbilt. He has been extremely, extremely consistent on the road, at home. Excellent play from Antonio Reeves so far. Another player that I really want to give flowers to here, and he has not just kept Kentucky in certain games, but really brought them back into games that they would have lost a season ago. Rob Dillingham has been insane in the clutch for the Wildcats. We said it coming out of high school, and I think that I stepped away from an opinion that I should have kept over the summer, which was that Rob Dillingham should be playing starting minutes for this Kentucky team. He should be playing a lot for the Wildcats because of his ability to create offensively and the ability to score in isolation. I said coming out of high school, he was going to be insane. And sure enough, he has been. 15.1 points per game, almost 3 rebounds, almost 4 assists per contest, while shooting 48.5% from the floor and a whopping 44.4% from 3. Better than Reeves, which is something I did not think he would come even close to at the beginning of the year. I thought he was just going to be a fun, creative scorer that would be very ball dominant for Kentucky and would end up starting. Obviously, as the summer progressed, we learned that Wagner would be the lead guy there, but Dillingham coming off the bench and getting those 15 points per game in just 23 minutes, by the way, the lowest number of minutes out of Kentucky's 4 strong guards here. I mean, there's nothing else to say other than this man can heat up like a microwave and he can score in bursts, and it is just beautiful, exciting, entertaining, fun basketball to watch. He is an excellent player, easily a lottery pick, one of my favorite players to come through Kentucky in quite some time. Love Rob Dillingham, love him inside of this team, the way that he fits the personnel. He's been keeping Kentucky kind of floating along whenever things have been difficult on offense. Whenever it gets to the end of the game and Kentucky needs an answer, Dillingham has provided every single time. He has provided. Another player, obviously, that has been helping out Kentucky is Reed Sheppard. Coming off the bench, playing 28 minutes a contest. He is 3rd on the team in scoring. And I'm just going to read the stat line here, just kind of show you what he's about. 12 points a game, 4.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, 2.6 steals, 53% from the floor, 51% from 3. Reed Sheppard, similar to Reeves, does everything well, but Sheppard takes it a step further. He does all of the different little things as far as distribution and steals go, and he's a more efficient shooter than Antonio is. 2 excellent guards there in Reeves and Sheppard. You pair them together, borderline unstoppable on offense. Excellent shooter is Reed Sheppard. Got great IQ. You see it in the steals. You see it in the assists. He's got great ball handling skills. He can take the rock himself and score. He can dish it to other players. Everything that Reed Sheppard does for Kentucky, minus some things on defense, is just incredible to watch. It is just beautiful, the fact that Kentucky's got this much talent in their backcourt that they are able to just kind of throw at opponents. Again, it's really what has carried the team so far this season, and it's shown out over these past 4 games, and it's really making me think that Kentucky basketball can make a legitimate run in March. And there's one more guy here that's starting to heat up, that if he gets going and he's contributing to these 3 different guards, Kentucky's going to lay 90 on just about everybody that they play. DJ Wagner, starting point guard for the Kentucky Wildcats, 10.6 points per game, 2 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shooting 42.3% from the floor and just 32.1% from deep. And Wagner has really struggled with his 3-point shot. Like, really struggled. In fact, from January 23rd all the way until February 24th, Wagner did not hit a single 3-point shot. I believe he was like 0 of 15 or something like that. Over these past 3 games, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and Vanderbilt, DJ Wagner is averaging 13.3 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, while shooting 64% from 3, 65% from the floor. Excellent numbers for DJ Wagner. I mean, like borderline unstoppable, insane numbers. He's been hot. He is finally, I think, starting to figure out his shot. It's got a little bit of a hitch in it. He leaves some things short, but over these past few games, he's been hitting. And something that this Kentucky team does not lack is confidence. And if a guy like him can get going and he can step out there and be confident alongside his guys, again, they're going to score 90 a game. I mean, that's just simply what they're going to do. So Wagner coming alongside, heating up, all of these guys heating up at the right time, I think is going to produce a lot of success. Hopefully, knock on wood, a lot of success in March. Let me know what you think about Kentucky basketball, how they're playing right now, how their guards are helping them. If you agree, if you think Kentucky's playing really good basketball, maybe they played a little bit of a weaker schedule, you can leave all of that in the comments below. If you're listening on podcast, you can check me out over at Locked On UK on Twitter. Okay, who are some of the best teams in college basketball? Well, over at my Substack, The College Notebook, I wrote about just about every single major contender in college basketball and put them down in a tier list. I want to talk about the best of the best here, who we need to be paying attention to in just a second. Before I do any of that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it is easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. You can keep your ride or die alive over at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, continuing along here on the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky, Lance Dawe hanging out here with you. Again, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel or the podcast feed wherever you are tuned in, please go ahead and do so. We've got one more game in the regular season, and it's a big one on the road at Tennessee this Saturday. Going to have a preview episode of this matchup coming up on Friday, recap episode on Saturday. You are not going to want to miss it, so subscribe wherever you are tuned in. It's going to be a fun one. SEC tournament is going to be super awesome as well. Okay, so like I mentioned, we've got the best of the best, cream of the crop in college basketball here, and I, over at my Substack, The College Notebook, you can go check it out. Link is in the description. Free to subscribe. Just drop your email. Going to be talking about Kentucky basketball stuff, Kentucky stuff, anything I want to about college football and basketball over there. But I dropped a tier list, about 6,200 words on every major contender in the NCAA tournament. Broken down into tier lists. We're going to talk about the A and the S tier. But just to let you know, my qualifications for this at the time of its post, which was February 26th, but it's still, I think everything holds today. The contenders, my parameters that I put around these teams in this tier list, they needed to be inside the top 35 of the KenPom ratings. They needed to be currently a top 4 seed in their conference or in the latest bracketology projections, just in, not as a top 4 seed, but just in, period. They had to have 8 losses or less, just because I felt like it at the time. I felt like that was a good like cutoff point for wins and losses, and they must be ranked or receiving votes in the latest AP Top 25 poll. So I had F, D, C, B, A, and S tiers. I believe it was like 23, 24 teams, but we'll start here with A tier because I think that these teams are really going to be the ones that we're going to focus on as possible either 1 or 2 seeds that Kentucky is going to see heading into the Sweet 16 if they make it there. These are the teams that you're going to want to pay attention to now in case Kentucky magically goes on a run. Starting here with the Duke Blue Devils. They lost at Wake Forest recently. It was really difficult for them. Right now, KenPom has Duke as the number 7 team in the nation. After losing that game at Wake Forest, they have won 3 straight games against Louisville, Virginia, and NC State. Really solid offense, really solid defense. I said at the time of this writing that if they won out, which they are, if I'm not mistaken, projected to win out, last game is against North Carolina, they would earn the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament. And at this point, they would have a 7-3 quad 1 record, top 10 offense, top 25 defense, got 2 really good guards to complement their excellent big man, Kyle Filipowski, who is averaging almost 17 points per game, 8.2 rebounds, Jeremy Roach, Jared McCain, 2 excellent 3-point shooters, 2 guys that I think could really make some teams struggle on defense in March. There is almost nothing stopping the Blue Devils from making a Sweet 16 run minimum, and it's somebody that Kentucky could easily run into in the bracket and would be a tough draw especially for Kentucky's defense. Tennessee is another team that I have in A tier. Might move them up to S tier now that they have kind of finished the season strong. SEC regular season champions. Dalton Knecht, as we all know, averaging over 20 points per game is just excellent. Currently, KenPom has this team number 5 in the country, top 20 offense, top 3 defense. My frustrations with Tennessee so far this season have been the random eggs they've laid in conference play. Curious to see if stuff like that, inconsistencies, translate over to the the NCAA tournament. But there are very few statistical flaws for the Tennessee Volunteers. And as we've seen in person, we've gotten to see in Rupp Arena, Kentucky can struggle against this team. This is not a great matchup. They've got several different guards that can light it up. Zakai Ziegler. You look at a guy like Dalton Knecht, obviously. Jonas Adu has really blossomed into a solid front court player. Josiah Jordan-James and Santiago Vescovi have been here for 35 years. Experienced, really, really, really good defense. Final Four national championship caliber team. Somebody that if Kentucky ran into would give the Wildcats a really tough time. Another team that I think we need to be really paying attention to, because this could be like a 4-5 matchup that Kentucky ends up seeing at the somewhere in the NCAA tournament. Gonna want to watch this team if you aren't already. The Iowa State Cyclones. I wrote this A-tier listing is going against the numbers that I was looking at the time, so I got the negatives out of the way first. Iowa State did not have a phenomenal offense, number 43 at the time in adjusted efficiency. They have now plummeted to number 69 nationally in adjusted efficiency, but their defense is the number 2. It's the second best in the country. The defense is really good. They turn opponents over on 26% of possessions. That is insane. They have the 3rd best steal percentage and the 4th best non-steal percentage in the country. They struggle to keep opponents off of the free throw line, but they do a really good job of playing aggressive, a gambling style of defense, and it's won them a lot of games. Iowa State right now sitting at 24-6, having won 4 straight, including a couple of really solid wins over Oklahoma and BYU. Tough road win at UCF, by the way. They will wrap up the season on the road at Kansas State. If they can do that, they will finish 14-4 in conference play. They currently sit at number 2 in the standings. Houston has locked up the number 1 seed in the Big 12. We'll talk about them in a second. But the Cyclones, really, really good. And let's just take a numbers at the defensive stats again. But this time, look at just conference-specific stats. This is a rough and tumble, really physical Big 12 conference. A lot of really, really good defenses here. Effective field goal percentage is number 8 in the Big 12. Turnover percentage, number 1. Offensive rebound percentage, number 12. Free throw rate, number 12. 3-point percentage, number 8. 2-point percentage, number 7. Steal percentage, number 2. 3-point rate, last in the Big 12. And assist rate, last in the Big 12. So they give up a lot of assists. They give up offensive rebounds. They're not a great field goal percentage team on defense, but they create havoc. They make opponents work, and they create a ton of turnovers. Sometimes they struggle. If they can't create turnovers, they're not able to win games. What's that going to look like in an NCAA tournament run? I think they can make it far, but how far depends on really just how effective their defense can be. Against a team like Kentucky, this would be a fascinating matchup because Kentucky really wants to turn up the pace. They don't turn the ball over a ton. They don't do a great job rebounding the basketball on either side of the floor. So I think this would be a really interesting matchup for UK, but a tough one nonetheless. Creighton, another team that I really, really like here in A tier. Going to kind of keep it pushing here. Not going to talk a ton about these teams. Creighton top 10 in KenPom, currently number 11 in offensive efficiency, number 24 in defensive efficiency. Just beat Marquette 89-75. Really solid win there for the Blue Jays. They are really fun to watch. As far as their pace, their shooting. They've got a really good big 3 in Baylor Shireman, a player that I really wanted out of the transfer portal last season. He's averaging 18 a game and 8.7 rebounds per game as one of the best shooters as well in the country. Trey Alexander, who was originally an Auburn commit, 17.1 points per game, 6 rebounds, 4.7 assists. And then Ryan Kalkbrenner, who is their big-time big man, 17 points, 7.3 rebounds. Arguably the best scoring trio in college basketball, outside of course, Dillingham, Sheppard, and Reeves. These three have helped the Blue Jays earn high rankings in stats like effective field goal percentage, 2-point percentage, and overall efficiency. This is a very good offense, but this team stinks at two different things: grabbing rebounds, getting to the foul line. They rank 267 and 351 nationally in those two categories. Massive red blocks on KenPom when it comes to looking at the stats. Creighton, really good defense. Top 15 in effective field goal percentage. Leads the nation in free throw rate. Teams do not get to the foul line. Unlike Iowa State, Kentucky would have a really hard time getting to the foul line against Creighton. And they also don't allow a ton of assists. But they are dead last in the country in turnover percentage. Dead last in the country in free throw percentage, something that they can't control. And number 360, which is second worst in the country in steal percentage. So they don't create turnovers, they don't create steals, and opponents, when they do get to the foul line, shoot better than anybody in the nation, which is just weird. I mean, they can't control that. If I'm not mistaken, also the Big East is a really good free throw shooting league, just based on the numbers that I've seen. So Creighton, another team that could give Kentucky problems because of their length and their offensive efficiency. Arizona, not S tier for me right now, but could be by the time all is said and done. Number 4 in the nation in the KenPom ratings have just, after losing to Washington State, won 3 straight, top 15 offense and defense. Caleb Love leading the charge for them, former North Carolina Tar Heel. Umar Ballo is a really good, solid double-double guy. SDSU transfer Keyshawn Johnson, somebody that Kentucky wanted, that we did a few episodes on here. He's been solid and a great three-point shooter as well. Tommy Lloyd, the head coach, I love the way he runs his offense. He runs a really short rotation, but it has been super effective. I'm gonna need to see Arizona not lose in the first round, though, to kind of feel better about them. And then S tier, we'll make this quick. These are 3 teams that you want to pay attention to if you are going to be watching the Kentucky Wildcats make a run in March. Houston, obviously, this would be a 1-4 matchup in the Sweet 16 that would be pretty likely for the Kentucky Wildcats if they were going to make a run. Houston, excellent defensively. Number 1 team in the country, according to KenPom. They're the number 1 team in the country overall. According to KP, they've won 8 straight games. Top 10 in steal, block percentage, 2-point percentage. Number 22 in 3-point percentage. Number 3 in turnover percentage. Number 4 in effective field goal percentage. And number 1 in the nation in adjusted efficiency. Oh my gosh, this team is really, really good. Jamal Shead, 13 points per game. LJ Cryer, Baylor transfer, 15 points per game. Joins Shead in the backcourt. Not great from shooting from the floor is Cryer, but he's a good 3-point shooter. Jamal Shead does a little bit of everything. Experienced, veteran, not very tall, but they are aggressive. They punch you in the mouth. They will drain your life force. And ladies and gentlemen, this would be a really difficult ask for Kentucky basketball. But if Kentucky gets hot, I mean, they get hot. If anybody's going to get hot, it's the Wildcats on offense. 2 other teams here: Purdue, Zach Edey, obviously, as we all know, 23 points per game, 11 rebounds per game. They've also got a couple of really solid 3-point shooters: Braden Smith, Lance Jones, Fletcher Lawyer. Just don't lose in the first round. You're still a really good team. Right now, Purdue would be my pick to win the national championship, just based on net ratings and stuff. And then UConn, best starting 5 in the country right now, I think, just as a whole, best starting 5, not best rotation. Tristan Newton, Cam Spencer, Alex Caravan, Donovan Clingan, Stephon Castle, the 5 guys there. All of them do a little bit of everything. Castle, the freshman, 5-star freshman, who's kind of working things out, playing a little bit better over these last 10 games or so, I should say. But this is a team that should win the Big East tournament and would be an awful matchup for Kentucky, I think, if they were to get that draw. So those are teams that you need to know about if Kentucky basketball is going to make a run in the NCAA tournament. You're probably going to see Kentucky run into one of those teams. So let me know what you think about that. Let me know what you think about Kentucky basketball if they were able to get to that point in the NCAA tournament. If you think they will, if you think they won't, you can leave all of that in the comments below. All right, to wrap up the show here, I want to talk a little bit about Kentucky in the net ratings and the bracketology. Things are looking good as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to dive into that in just a second. Before I do that, though, I want to tell you guys about our friends over at Amazon Fire TV. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. They also offer amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the TV Fire Stick that you can plug into your existing television that provides access to millions of movies, TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. They recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us here at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep you up to date on all of the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, and cooking videos as well. You can check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices, and if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, you can visit amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. Again, that is amazon.com/lockedonfiretv. All right, wrapping up the Thursday edition of Locked On Kentucky. Lance Dawe checking it out here with you. Net ratings, bracketology update for the boys here as we wrap it up. Let's start here with the bracketology. Kentucky sitting on that 4 to 5 seed line, according to our boy Joe Lunardi. Wildcats sitting at number 4, as a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. Not moved up or down, just kind of sitting on that line. If I'm not mistaken, according to Lunardi, Kentucky is the best 4 seed. So they are on the verge of moving up to that 3 seed line. Other teams here kind of floating in that same boat. Alabama, another 4 seed. Illinois, San Diego State, also 4 seeds as well. BYU, Auburn, Washington State, and Clemson as 5 seeds here. And then Baylor, Kansas, Creighton, and Duke, also 3 seeds as well. Some teams that we just talked about. And if you want to look here as to potential matchups for the Wildcats, so let's just theorize here for a second. Kentucky, number 4 seed in the Midwest region. Let's say they stay at that 4 seed spot. They would play App State in the opening round. That's a tough game. Really good team out of the Sun Belt. Then they would play either Clemson or Richmond, 2 teams. I don't think they would be a massive problem for Kentucky. Watch Kentucky play one of them and get blown out by 50 now. But if you make it to the Sweet 16, you would be playing likely Purdue. And if you were playing in the East region, you'd probably be playing North Carolina or UConn. You would be playing either Houston or Tennessee if you were a 3 or a 4 seed in the South region, and you'd be playing Arizona or Iowa State, the 1 and 2 seeds in the West region, if you were a 3 or a 4 seed. If I'm not mistaken, also SDSU is the lowest rated 4 seed, so you would more than likely, I'm sorry, as far as 3 seeds go, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Kansas is actually the lowest rated 3 seed. So Kentucky would move over to the East region. They'd be playing likely UNC in the Sweet 16. That is if they would get past Seton Hall, Virginia, or South Carolina in the round of 32. And I would not like any of those matchups, to be quite honest with you. So bracketology looking really solid for the Wildcats right now. We'll see how the draw falls after the SEC tournament. But as of today, not mad at it. Not mad at it at all. Wrapping up the show here, Kentucky in the net ratings, obviously 22-8 overall. You look at the quad 1 wins for the Wildcats, 5-6 is UK. They have an opportunity to go to 6-6 in quad 1 victories if they beat the Vols this weekend. Tennessee ranked number 5 in the country in the net ratings. Kentucky 2-1 in quad 2 games, 8-1 in quad 3 games, and 7-0 in quad 4 opportunities. Wildcats 6-3 on the road, 14-4 at home. Not a lot of teams can say in this top 40, I would say, not a lot of teams in this top 40 that are really, really good can say that they have a winning record on the road, or at least have as many wins as Kentucky does on the road so far this season. Wildcats, as far as I'm concerned, the resume could be just a little bit better if they hadn't lost to LSU. They would be kind of one step away from competing for an SEC championship. They'd look solid. But as far as I'm concerned, things are not that bad. It's actually a pretty solid resume overall. And knowing that this team has that offensive ceiling, I'm kind of content with where Kentucky's at. So if you've got any thoughts on it, you can leave all of it in the YouTube comments below. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Kentucky. You can follow the show on Twitter at LockedOnUK. You can follow me on Twitter at LanceDawe_, and you can follow the show over on Instagram. That is at Kentucky Podcast. Any questions, comments, concerns, leave those in the YouTube comments below. Hit me on the socials. I will see you all tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Kentucky. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and God bless.